Hello, everyone. I am so excited to have a dear friend of mine, Karen Simpson, from so long ago, and we're still in touch. I'm so grateful for our friendship, and I'll let Karen introduce herself. So, welcome, my friend. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you so much, Bobby. Yeah, I was thinking back and we've known each other for a really long time, right? First as colleagues, then as friends, and we've always kind of kept this touch point going for all of these years. It's really lovely to have a chance to come on and talk with you today about such an important topic. So, a little about me. I liken myself to being a lifelong listener and a truth teller, which doesn't say much about my career or what my hobbies are, but I consider myself to be a seer who combines observation with data and intuition to forecast what's to come. I've leveraged this skill set over more than 40 years of career, two careers really. I spent my earliest career in the professional audio and acoustics industry, and then I transitioned after doing my MBA into technology and working in tech for the past 23 years. Now I'm at a place in my life where I'm looking forward to my next circuit and just seeing where that will take me. It's already becoming a very interesting transition.
Wonderful, wonderful. I love that term circus. We talked about that a lot earlier. Feel free to bring it in yourself if you like. But yeah, also to just toot your horn a little bit for you, my friend. And I'll say kind of in terms of impact. So, the kind of roles Karen's been in have, I think, impacted user experience, just the whole sort of thinking through the human-centric approach to design, to technology. We were together at Microsoft, but yeah, just amazing. And I love those anchors you laid out. So keep bringing them in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very recently, I've had a chance to do a lot of unwinding as I've had quite a lot of time now that I'm in this next cycle. And in that, I've done quite a lot of introspection around the ideas of humanity and empathy and kindness and what it means to live through your heart. And, while I was in tech, I really worked hard to maintain the customer at the center, which is truly about keeping the heart at the center of any of our products. It's a challenge to do, right? In our patriarchal capitalistic society, keeping the heart at the center, keeping the customer at the center is not easy. And, I moved into employee experience. And with employee experience, again, you're heart center. You have to be heart center. Big corporations, regardless of whether they were customers or within the company itself, it's really easy to lose track of that. We spend so much time in our head that we lose track of our heart. And I've always tried to maintain that heart-centered approach and bringing that heart and that truth of the heart to the surface in all things. Sometimes I've been successful, sometimes not so much, but over 23 years in tech, I hope I've made at least a little impact.
Oh, much more than little, my friend. And you know what? I will, since we teased everybody with this concept of circus, I'll say it generically. And I believe we're really in an evolution in workplaces, since the focus of this podcast is about workplaces and culture. That story of signing up for a circus, for, delivering for any corporation, as you're mentioning, the capitalistic way, and losing sight of that human centric piece. I think that's also what you're doing. All right, let's dive in. Let's get to how do you define respect in the workplace, Karen?
So I'm going to take us down a little bit of a rabbit trail. So recognize you and I have known each other for a very long time. I honor the work that you have done over the years and coming up with your respect model, which I love. So let me set that out as first context, and then I'm going to take us following the rabbit here. So as I said, I spent this fall having some time to unwind, spent a lot of time in the woods during the day, spent a lot of time outside at night with my telescope, watching the moon, looking at planets, looking at the universe pass us by, having the ability to see the Milky Way, and really getting grounded again in the sacred spaces that I've really lost track of during the course of the past 23 years. And all the while I was doing that, this conversation of respect that you and I started probably a year ago now was in the back of my mind, and it was like teasing me like this little burr in my clothes, right? It was this itchy spot all the time. And I was wondering to myself, what is it about this word that I struggle so much with? And I kept having this vision of old Yul Brynner movies. So if you go back to Yul Brynner movies, and I'll bring this back to the corporate space here in a minute, but you had The King and I, and you had the Ten Commandments, right? And there are a collection of others. But there was always this man standing and, throngs of people before him, and this idea that you have to earn respect or you've lost respect. And I was struggling with this idea that respect is a currency that is bartered within a patriarchal system. And that is not the grounding of humanity. That is an artificial wrapping or a patriarchal construct or mass in front of something that goes back to the sacred feminine of empathy and kindness and humanity and nurturing and creation. And so I really struggled with this idea of respect, kind of like I struggled with the word deserve. You deserve this, right? Which is often meted out in either accolades or financial gain or punishment, right? You deserve this. Not a word I like, a word I really try to eliminate from my vocabulary and consciousness. So respect sort of has that same weight to it for me personally. And I would say that rather than defining this idea of respect in the workplace, we have to define what does it mean to be human in the workplace, and how do we honor the humans in the workplace and give them the kindness that we all have a right to, a birthright to even. How do we recognize that when we approach all things with kindness and empathy, that we do better? We're all happier, right? And so I'm kind of flipping this idea of what is my definition of respect sort of on its head and dig deeper beyond the trappings of patriarchal norms of something that is bartered, won or lost, earned, into something that is more feminine, more from the heart, which is this idea of kindness, empathy, and humanity.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm so excited you went there. I'm fully with you, firstly. And what's interesting is the core of what I'm hearing you speak to is that humanity piece around, really, if I could paraphrase the commonly used term, of meet people where they are. So do I take the time to really get to know you, or am I quick to judge and put you in a box? Whether I like you or don't like you, that's so easy. I always use the example of sitting next to someone on a plane, a stranger, and doing that, right? We're all doing that all the time. And I think it's about this. And I love your description of you're slowing down right now and being in nature. If only we all did that more. I think in the other layer with the patriarchal piece is this concept of time and how everything is so urgent and needed yesterday with AI has only become, it's on steroids. I mean, it's just crazy.
Manic.
Yeah, I know. A very quick side note. I just spoke to somebody I really respect, a very senior leader. when I was talking about AI and I said, the plan is across the quarter. Now, in the good old patriarchal way of Wall Street and quarterly results, that's about a short window and, considered to be the way business has been operating. And he was like, no, that's too long. He's right. Like AI is just the speed of AI is so fast. Anyway, not to go there, but just thought I'd insert that in. All right, Karen. So how do you know when respect is there in that human centric way in the kind of work environments you've been in or, what you're seeing? Because you also see so many trends. And yeah. So how do you know when it's present?
So, first, I'd like to deconstruct the idea of respect. If we take respect at first value, I think respect in the workplace is often used as a weapon, right? Where respect is something that is a position of fear, right? Like, if I go into this presentation, will they respect me? What respect am I going to lose if I say something that's out of turn or out of pocket? Am I acceptable? Right. And again, coming back to this idea of respect as something that is bartered, won, or lost, I think that respect has been weaponized very often. But if we dig underneath it, again, getting into the sacred feminine and peeling away that patriarchal construct, then we get back into humanity, kindness, empathy, nurturing, creation. And when that happens, people begin to honor the humanity of each other. They understand each other's fears. They work closer together. They're not afraid of the interactions. They leave their own ego behind in order to be beneficial to the whole. They approach their daily, I'll call them tasks, right? Their daily work life, whatever that might look like, with a greater level of heart. And it creates understanding, it creates collaboration, it creates a space where people feel safe to be messy. And we have to be messy, particularly, as you mentioned, in this age of AI where everything is moving at lightning speed, faster than lightning speed, actually. That if you're not safe in that space, how can you truly be inventive and productive and really show up in a way that allows for failure and success? Because you don't have success without failure, right? So again, coming back to this idea, while respect is this sort of bartered thing, underneath it, the soul of respect, if you will, is this reconnection to the heart and having empathy for each other and honoring the humanity in each other.
I love it. And, we hadn't planned to go down AI, and you and I haven't talked about this, but you just gave me completely aligned on some of those intersections. And I think with all the hype about AI, we're again missing the human aspect. That, just like you and I know with market research and data, garbage in, garbage out. It's a human that's interacting with technology to ask for something and receive an output. That's not a technologist, but that's the simplest way I know how to do it. And so, with the layers that you brought in around patriarchy, with the biases that we bring in when we come in with our pre-assumed assumptions rather than curiosity to learn and explore, I'm fascinated as I'm looking at different AI platforms, those that ask me questions to seek to understand me, that's respect. That's a version of respect, right? And that's with technology that I have to use with reverence and care. But how many of us take the time to do that, right? Because it's really like, hey, this is a machine. It's going to make me go faster. It's going to produce things that I took me days or weeks to do in seconds. That part's great, but not at the cost of quality and excellence that I think we're really committed to. So sort of see that connected, Karen.
Yeah, and also we have to recognize that AI is a tool. it isn't the human, right? As far as AI has come relative to natural language models, it's still a robot at the end of the day. It will give you an answer, even if that answer is wrong.
Yeah. And it takes all of us, I hope, have experienced this. It takes that discernment for us to say, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right, or I know that's wrong, and it admit that. So if at all we fool ourselves to thinking it mimics human behavior, it's very fallible. And so we have to keep that in mind. And that's why we need to be even sharper.
Yes.
Checking our context that we've set and how we navigate it. Anyway,
Yeah.
back on track with, and it's interweaved. So yeah, I hope it's okay with you for us to go in and out of that. So when you have experienced, oh, and by the way, actually, before we go back to respect, I would love you to define, because you've given such a lovely, provocative explanation of how you see respect. Tell us how you define trust and how they, compare and contrast those two words.
Trust. I knew you were going to go there. I did. I spent some time thinking about it. I don't have notes on it, though. So, trust is a neurological wiring. If you have read or listened to Oprah has a book with Dr. Bruce. Not going to remember his name. They have a book called What Happened to You. And this book combines psychology with neuroscience, and particularly relative to developmental neuroscience, which results in behaviors in children, teens, adolescents, adult, elderly people. It kind of goes through that whole story, really, Oprah trying to unpack her own story of trauma. And it's fantastic. I recommend it. Anybody that hasn't read it, please go find it. It's phenomenal. Trust occurs as wiring in the brain in the first 3 months of infancy. Known fact. And that trust is about I, as a small human with very specific needs and conditioned, and I build neural pathways that say, I will be cared for. I can expect my needs to be cared for. First 3 months of birth. So trust is a neurological wiring that we have that says, I understand what to expect from the person I am engaged with. And people who do not have that neurological wiring in those first 3 months, where they don't have their needs met, become disassociative adults. They do not have the ability to trust at all because those connections in that neural pathway has not been developed. So I take trust as a very different physiological, neurological development versus respect, which I think is a patriarchal construct that is a mechanism to hide the feminine heart.
Thank you. So, Karen, wow, I'm going to have to go read that book. And that is the most enlightening definition of trust I've heard. And I really want to make sure people get that distinction from sort of the classic way we talk about trust, for instance, with, Patrick Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions for a team framework, where it's a pyramid. And that too, I think you're right, it's patriarchally designed, where the way that trust is defined. So, the 2 questions we're sitting with typically with guests is how do you define, how do you know when respect is there and when it's not? But give us the ingredient, actually go ahead and blend in closer tips. I think feel free to don't limit yourself to 3 tips. Give us the ingredients, or what would it take for leaders today to one, hopefully, as you're listening, you agree with Ken around, yeah, we've missed something here. And even women are so accustomed to adapting and fitting in to the patriarchal way that the system has put us in. And we've been very successful in it, right? You and I have lived that. But there is another way, and that can be done in this evolution, because it's not a band-aid that we're going to rip off and replace. It's an evolutionary process. So if you could, Karen, give us that roadmap. What would that look like? If you could dream and bond, what are some of those ingredients that could make for that better world? Because, everything you were saying earlier, kindness, absolutely, and respect for each other. I hear that with every guest I speak to about respect, but you're on to something really big here. And I hope you will take this further to write a book about it, because it's a huge topic. But in this short conversation, give us your nuggets of wisdom on how to make it real.
Well, I think we're at a period of time where we can't go slow anymore. The heart has to take over again. It has to. It's urgent. So for everybody out there who recognizes how far away they've gotten away from heart center, I would beseech you to find some time to slow down, to get into the woods, to go walk, to put your feet on the earth, to look at the sky, find the stars, whatever the thing is for you to get back to nature, to reconnect with your heart. Some tips for it. The first one, of course, is to breathe more. When we are so in our heads, we stop breathing. Right? It takes neurological and physiological impact on us. Notice what happens when you breathe more, when you take that deep breath, when you oxygenate your system, how your nervous system relaxes, how the cortisol comes down. Right? And what happens in your body when you stop breathing? Sort of the urgency that you feel, right? The anxiousness that you feel, the aggression that you might feel when you shut your body down. So breathe more. The second one, aligned to breathing, is taking a moment to pause. Right? Pausing shifts us from our amygdala, our alligator brain, our reaction brain, into our prefrontal cortex, brings back thought, brings back consideration, brings back ration into our thinking and what will come out of our face. So take that moment to pause. Recognize that, particularly as leaders, you have the time and the privilege to pause. And I would even say, not only do you have the privilege to pause, but you have the requirement to pause. It is your responsibility to pause, to get everybody into their prefrontal cortex. The last piece, and maybe I'll go on here, but the last piece is to react, prefrontal cortex reaction, not amygdala reaction. React with kindness and with heart. Understand how to honor the humanity of the people or the person in front of you, the group of in front of you. Recognize what they might be going through, what their fears might be. Putting yourself in others' place and recognizing that, and then choosing kindness rather than choosing ego and structure and hierarchy and earned value. Because at the end of the day, those things are masked for a more important way forward, which is with kindness and heart.
Really the pause coming on to just take that in. Yeah, I'm going to look at the guests. I mean, folks, if you're listening to this, I mean, Karen has just thrown such a fantastic, I would say, smack bomb. And again, you probably don't know her. Hopefully, some of our fellow friends who know her will watch this. But truly, the gravitas of what she's saying, it isn't fluffy, soft skill stuff. She's bringing in science to this. And this is somebody who's been deep in data for at least 2 decades. So, I listen to a lot of podcasts with some of the top neurologists from Harvard, et cetera. And Karen, you've outdone them. I mean, you just brought it all together in that wisdom. And I think you'll be with me where I say, I think the heart center as a brain center is time. And we need to go reclaim that. And we need to operate from that with respect for both. The brain, by the way, is an engine, but it's the mind that makes meaning. Yeah. So when we can make meaning with our mind and heart, that's when the magic is possible.
Yeah. And we're at a precipice right now. What direction do we want to go in? If history repeats itself, I don't want to go down that other path.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I don't usually ask guests to give a call to action to those that are listening, but I think you just did. That it's so urgent for all of us to do our part.
Yes.
In
Yes.
how we show up, in how we walk on this planet, on how we interact, starting with ourselves, right? Another theme that's shown up a lot on this podcast is self-respect. I can't respect another until I have that self-love and respect. And I don't mean that from an ego place. I mean it from that heart-centered way that you're defining it.
Yeah. And I might refocus that and say, honor thyself. Right? Honor what you have, honor where you are, recognize where you are, honor that space, honor who you are.
Yeah.
Over the course of the past 20 plus years, I had gotten very far away from myself. And just in the past 6 months, I've had an opportunity to dig myself back up, right? To do that archaeological dig and to find out how to honor myself again and come back to the sacred feminine and come back to that place of kindness. And what I see is that kindness will win. And so I'm asking everybody to find out how to honor yourself, not from an egotistic way or from a hierarchical way, but truly honor yourself as the child that you wanted to become or that you wanted to come from.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. Well, Karen, it's been an honor to have you here. I'm going to make a call to action for you, actually, as in public here to say that when I get to my book, and there will be a book on this topic, I'd love you to be a co-conspirator, co-author, or researcher on it from this angle. So I'm definitely going to have you back and we'll go deeper on this. But for today, we'll call it close. Deeply honored and thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So much appreciate you, Bobby. Thank you so much for having me.